Today I'm going to demonstrate how to create a tri-fold mask from the PMLA Tri-Fold Mask Kit. Now the finished mask looks like this. We have a nose bar, we have a couple of pleats, we have our hair tie going through here instead of the elastic, and also we have a pocket that allows people to put a filter in if required. So to start off, what you'll need is one of the larger rectangles, the two side seam pieces. You'll need a nose bar, you'll need one of your ties, safety pin, a couple of snippies, and definitely some pins, and just until you kind of get in the flow, having a ruler is handy too. So first things first, we're going to actually sew some little seams on these rectangles here. Now you're going to see that on these rectangles there are some notches about 1 inch down. If they are not there, do not fear, measure 1 inch down and put those notches in. What you're going to do is backtrack, flip forward, do it again on the same other side, do that for both. Now, why you're probably asking, do some of them have the notches and some don't? Well, we actually cut these production style. So we're actually layering the fabric down and using a rotary cutter. And, you know, sometimes the pieces of fabric on the bottom of those cuts may not get that tiny little notch. We don't want to be cutting too much into fabric either, so no big deal. All right, so here are our two rectangles. You're going to flip them over, and you can with an iron flatten these down if that makes you more comfortable. But you know, a little bit of heat and friction from your hand tends to do fairly well when it comes to cotton fabrics. All right, so there we go. Now what I want you to do is again take note of where the little notches are, and for now you're just going to fold over in half the notches facing outward, and you're just going to put a little pin in, and this is just for safekeeping until we are going to use them in a couple of steps down the road. So just notch on the outside, pin facing out. It'll come apparent why that's pretty useful later, and just kind of with your hand making it nice. Okay, so we've got these two pieces. Going to put those aside. So we've got our larger rectangle here. What we actually want to do is finish these edges. Look, if you have a serger, awesome, but it's not necessary. We're going to fold over these raw edges with a straight stitch. All right. Now one side of this has notches and the other one doesn't. That will become apparent why in a moment. What you're going to do is place your material under the machine such as this. You know, I've got there about 1/4 inch, you know. We don't want to waste too much of the material with the fold over. And you're just going to sew it all the way down. Please backstitch all of your stitching lines, because it definitely does improve the longevity of our masks. Remembering that these masks are meant to be reusable, and they also need to withhold through the laundering process. We actually launder all of the masks donated to Project Mask LA. This ensures that all of our masks are safe to use straight away. Alright, so we are... No need to rush, especially when you've just started with a new design. Alright, there we go. So, I'm just going to clean up all these edges. Right. Keep it nice and neat as you go along. Okay, so we have our rectangle. And what I want for you to do next is we're going to just check where our little notches are. All right, so our notches are up here. So let's flip this. You're going to pull this down, and this is where the ruler comes in. You know, about 1.5 inches, you know, approximate. It's not a huge deal. And just fold it over nicely, like this. And then we've got our edge with the notches. Oh, you know what I've done? I'm a silly, you know, we're gonna do this so that it's on this side. Oh boy. All right, so 1.5 inches down. Okay, so you've got the right side facing up and you're folding it down so the wrong side is facing you on that side. Then you've got the side with the notches. All right, you're going to 1.5 inches. Bring this up to the top edge, all right? And we're just keeping things nice and flat. All right, now here it is fairly important because you're going to do some finagling in the sewing machine. You've got this little overlay here, all right? And this is actually going to be what, this is us fabricating a pocket that allows a fill to be put in, but it also means that the end, like at the end, the mask can conform to the face and continue to be a 2-layer mask, with or without the filter. All right. So when you're pinning, you're just pinning these top 2 layers. You're leaving this free because what we want to do is create a little bit of a tube. However, you're not going to be sewing all the way down. This is where the notches come in. You see that the notch is here and here. Now, just to clarify, that's about 2 inches. Wait. Yeah, it's about 2 inches in. What you're going to do is just do a straight stitch along to the notch. And I'd like you to do it along that stitch line that's already there. So there's a stitch line from you folding over. That's all we're going to do. So, bringing the machine in. Now, look, I'm not going to say that this isn't awkward because it is. We've got a tube here, and you're going to be fighting with your machine to keep this material out of the way, but also doing a nice straight stitch. It's just about making sure you are aware of where that material is. So it is a matter of just kind of feeling it from underneath and making sure that you keep it out of the harm's way. Straightening it up so that you are getting a nice straight stitch in the area you want, going along that stitch line, and when you hit that notch, just doing the back and forth. Now, flipping it over, making sure that you haven't caught anything, and then you can trim on both sides. Trim this little guy. All right, then we go on to the other side. Same deal. Taking your pin out, making sure that fabric is out of the way, straightening it up a little bit, and off you go. I just like to double check a couple of times, and finding that notch and then back and forth. Awesome. Now just double checking, excellent. I did not catch the fabric. Look, I do that because I have done that a few times. And it's frustrating because then you have to go and unpick, you know? All right. So here we go. Moving this out of the way. Now what we have here is our fold over section, right? We've got it side stitched on the sides, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip it. Now I mean flip it because we want the loose end facing down, all right? And we're just going to bring this line closer to the top. We're going to actually want it about a 1/2 inch from the top. Now this may all seem a little confusing, but it will make sense, I promise. So now remember these notches. We have a notch here. It's about a 1/2 inch down on both sides of these side seam sections. We have our a seam here, and what I want you to do is line up the notch that is on the side of these side seams with the stitch line that you have here. And I want you to just attach those as such. Now again, we want to keep this undersection, free. So that's one side. Let's do it to the other. Lining up the notch with the sew line and pin. Now what is this? Okay, so we want, the way that we've created the design is so that it's hopefully a little less problematic with less questions. The section up here allows there to be a space above this fold, which will eventually have the nose piece. Okay, so what we're going to do though first, before we get to that, is we then flip this baby around again. Now what we have here is all of this fabric that we are going to create our pleats with. And they are eventually going to line up so that it fits on the side seams here. So the first pleat, now this is a little bit, we're not going to give you exact measurements because, you know, it is sort of somewhat of a estimation. We want you to leave approximately like about a 1/2 inch up the top. And then we want you to pinch about, I want to say, I don't know, and half to a 3/4 of an inch. Pinch a bit of fabric up and have it sit down. So you have a 1/2 inch, you have about a 1/2 inch, 3/4, fold over and lay it down. And then I want you to pin. Now you're going to do it again. Now what I generally do is I do not have my pleats overlapping each other. So you'll see that here, this is where that first pleat ends. So when it comes to creating another pleat, bring it up. And the top of this pleat is actually going to sit at the base of the previous one. So again, it's like about a half inch to a 3/4 of an inch. And then you're going to have it sit at the base of that previous pleat and pin. Now we have one last one that we want to do. What you'll notice is that we have the base of our side seam poking out there, and that's what we actually want to have this pleat sitting at. So you're basically just going to fold up this material so that it sits at the base of those side seams and fold it up. And that will simply create the last pleat. Now you've done it on one side, and what's nice about cotton fabric is that it likes to do what it's told, which is fabulous. So really what you can do is sort of flatten this down without having to do all of the measuring once again. And it does tend to just do its thing. With a bit of finagling. I'm not gonna lie. It's also a little bit hard when I'm trying to make sure that this is in shot. Any questions? If any questions you may have after this tutorial, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can contact us through Slack. We have a great system on there where you can ask questions about any of the designs, about process. If you're having any troubleshooting with your machines, you know, so on and so forth. We're here to help. All right. There we go. So, here we have our pleats. They are all pinned. And if you flip it on this side, you'll see that this is that start of that pocket. So the next step here is to straight stitch on both sides. Making sure the beastie's in focus. All right, here we go. Now I like to always sew down when it comes to pleats, right? It just means that you know that they are being sewn down correctly. Sometimes if they're on the other side or you're sewing up, they can, it's kind of like you're working against the grain in a sense. And that can get a little cumbersome and also it can just cause issues. All right, so back stitching, really important, always. Make sure you take all your pins out. All right, and if you notice, this is the reason why I've suggested always having your pins outwards. It means when you are sewing that they're easily removed. Now, because I said I like going, sewing downwards, I actually flip this. I know you can't see the pleats, and I know that makes some people nervous, but if you have secured a pin in each of the pleats, you really shouldn't come across a problem sewing it on the other side. You'll also notice that I like to have my hand fairly securely against the fabric, and you know, that just kind of keeps the fabric in place, doing what it's told. All right, so we are nearing towards the end, my friends. I do realize that this design is a little extra, but you know, aren't we all sometimes? So, so let's clean this up. A few more steps and we're done. Okay, so before we flip this and witness our delightful efforts, you're going to grab one of these nose bars. It has a sticky side. What you're going to do, and now it's going to make sense why we have this little space, is you're going to stick this along the very top so that it sits really close to that top fold. And it should clear this, all right? Should clear this, and clear that first fold on the other side, because what we're going to do is flip that onto the right side and then sew a pocket around it. So at this point, we can flip this to the right side. And this is where you get to go, ooh, I did it. And it looks fabulous. And you can sing or not. All right. Right on. Now, before we go ahead and sew this, what you'll notice is we have our side seams that we will be putting our head tie through. We have the overlapping pocket, and what we have at the moment loosely in here is the nose bar, but you are going to stitch that in place. So you just need to feel out where you've placed it, all right? And what we're going to do first is a straight stitch. Now really be careful where that starts. Ensure that you are a little bit over to the left side of it. Also making sure that we are clear of any other components of the mask. Bring it over this way. Now remember, we have the underside, a little bit awkward to see. We have the underside of this pocket in here, and you can feel that because we folded over and made it a seam there. So you can feel for that and just easily just kind of pull it away. All right, so please be sure that you are missing because Lord knows we can get caught awesome. Absolutely no rush. Just double checking that we have passed it. Awesome. Bringing it over this side. Little back stitch again. Oh my goodness, we are almost done. All right. Okay, here we go. Now we have our nose piece firmly in place. We thankfully, have not sewn over the pocket section because we gently pulled it away by just pulling this side whilst it was under the machine. And our last step is to put our headband through the side seams. Now, we have moved away from using elastic, and if you haven't heard why, it's because it's getting a little harder to source and people are bumping up their prices. So we've been getting, donations of non-100% cotton, and we really suggest that the 100% cotton is used for the face of the mask. However, we can still utilize other materials that are not 100% cotton to actually create this spaghetti strap. We go get it done and it turns out to be extremely economical, and we're also being sustainable because we're using donations that people are giving us. So amazing, right? Amazing, amazing, amazing. So here we have it. Here we have it, folks. Our finished mask with the nose bar, side seams, pleats, and we have a pocket so that people can put in a filter if they feel it is necessary. I hope that was easy to follow. If you have any questions, I will leave contact details in the description below. You can actually request one of these kits through our request form, and you can obtain that form once you actually fill out to be a volunteer and go through orientation. Amazing. All right. Thanks for watching.